You finally have an afternoon with no obligations. The house is quiet, the chores are finished, and you sit down to do absolutely nothing. But instead of relief, a creeping anxiety sets in. Your heart rate ticks up, and your mind begins searching for a problem to solve. Why does stillness trigger a sense of danger? And why does the simple act of asking for help feel like committing a crime? People often look at high-functioning, hyper-independent adults and see the strong ones, natural-born problem solvers who handle every crisis without blinking. This intense self-reliance is actually an adaptation. It is the result of a nervous system forced to manage adult-sized pressures long before it had the biological tools to handle them. Psychologists identify this dynamic as parentification. It begins with a quiet realization. A child notices a lack of reliability in the adults around them and concludes that someone must be responsible, so it might as well be them. They step in to fill the vacuum. This forced early responsibility rewires the architecture of a developing brain. It shifts the primary focus from natural growth and exploration to constant, high-alert survival. When a child faces inconsistent support, the brain performs a cold calculation. It recognizes that expecting comfort or help is a dangerous liability that leads only to disappointment. In this environment, every emotional need hits a wall. To maintain functionality, the brain learns to systematically reroute those needs into deep suppression. This creates survival independence. The child learns to handle every crisis alone, building a thick protective shell that prioritizes competence over vulnerability. By adulthood, this produces an individual who appears perfectly composed, yet internally, they harbor a deep distrust of any support that feels temporary or fragile. Fierce independence serves as a highly effective, learned defense mechanism. It is a shield constructed to ensure they never have to rely on a support system that might disappear. This uneven pressure creates a developmental gap known as split maturity. The sectors of the brain responsible for logic, responsibility, and problem-solving are fast-tracked. They reach a serious, adult-like state years before they should. Conversely, the sectors related to emotional trust and the ability to safely need others remain unmet. They stay grayed out, waiting for a safety that never arrived. This split explains why rest feels like a threat to the nervous system. For a parentified child, calm periods were often the quiet before the storm. Because peace usually preceded a crisis, the nervous system locked into a state of permanent alertness. To do nothing is to leave yourself unguarded. This alertness manifests as guarded empathy and deep guilt. In their formative years, receiving care felt like a zero-sum game. If they were being looked after, they believed they were burdening someone else. Consequently, as adults, they minimize their needs. They apologize for requiring support, because their wiring equates receiving care with causing harm. Psychology views this hyper-alert nervous system as an adaptation rather than a defect. The brain succeeded in its primary mission. It learned responsibility before safety and strength before softness, because there was no other option available. However, the survival armor that was necessary to get through childhood can become a barrier in adulthood, preventing the very rest and connection that the individual now needs. Healing involves the conscious, active process of updating a nervous system that is still running on outdated survival software. It is an integration of the split sectors, allowing the responsible adult to finally provide the safety that the unmet child sector requires to lower its guard. Healing is the act of teaching your brain that the childhood emergency is over. It is the realization that the weight can finally be set down and that you are, at last, allowed to rest.